Welcome to the Just Barry podcast. Today I have the honor of speaking with Mason Sawyer. He is a devoted father and advocate for resilience from West Jordan, Utah. Through a profound loss that occurred in July 2021, Mason has embraced the 1090 principle and has dedicated himself to inspiring others through his podcast, The 1090, and public speaking engagements. His journey is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the power of perspective. So I went to an event last fall and listened to 5 days worth of speakers from like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. And there were two that really stood out to me the most. One was Bobby Castro, and he and his wife sold their business for like $1 billion, I believe. And the other one was Mason. And
What conference is this? Was this the JT Fox? Okay,
JT Fox.
gotcha.
Yep. So the other one was you, Mason, and just for you to share your story from exactly where you were at in your healing process and being so open and vulnerable with so many people watching you. I just feel like that really created a powerful connection of like healing and growth, not only for you, whenever we share our stories, like it's part of the healing process, but it also provides that space for other people to heal and grow if they're open to doing that. So I just have a lot of respect for you and was really just blown away hearing your story and seeing how you showed up. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Jess. That means a lot. Where are you from?
I'm from Utah, actually.
Yeah, you're like from Lehigh or
Oh,
where's
Linden. I grew up in Linden, pretty much.
that? What a small world that we were both at that event.
I know. I was like, oh, a fellow Utah.
That was fun. I don't know. It just all went by so quick, and I didn't really know what I was stepping into. I thought there might be 20 people there, and then there's 1,500. So I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, which is so cool. Just having that mindset of being open and just kind of trusting the process. I feel like that's
No, I think one thing I believe in is just showing up, and it might go bad, it might go good, but I don't know. One reason why my podcast has grown a little bit is just keep showing up and just do what you can. So yeah, sounds simple, but I think it's a big deal.
like I think like that consistency is great.
Yeah.
Like even if you don't know exactly where you're going, just being consistent and then the journey unfolds while you're walking it.
Yep.
So, I want to dive into your story a little bit here and something that I have really embraced in my own life from experiencing a lot of trauma.
What happened to you?
Well, we can get into that, but this is mostly for you.
Give me
Yeah, the quick rundown here. So I grew up being molested by my dad for about 9 years. My parents got divorced, he went to jail, lost parental rights, grew up with the single low income household where, mom was working all the time, pretty much raised myself. And in the sense of like emotionally, I feel like because, my mom was, she had a lot going on as me and my three brothers. And so she was in her own space and her own journey. And, I was kind of left to forge ahead and I learned the value of hard work and consistency, like we were talking about, and just showing up. And you don't really know why things happen, but I really gravitate to your message of the 1090 because from a young age, I've adopted that belief that it doesn't matter what happens to you, what matters is what you do about it. So, kind of touching on that, I wanted to have you flesh out the 1090 principle and what is that and how have you applied it in your life?
Well, first of all, I'm so sorry. That's so fucked up. That sucks. I don't even know what to say. Yeah, I had great parents. I had it good till I was 30, and then my life went to shit. But like that's a whole different thing.
Well, and that's the thing. There's an analogy about we each have a dump truck in life and it's going through and it's going to dump out the dirt or the shit like
Yeah.
either, all at once in the beginning or, throughout or everyone's different. So we need to
Yeah,
keep
that's funny because we don't talk about it though. We don't ever talk about the shit being dumped out. We just act like it's
yeah,
all step over it around it. Like it's not here.
right.
Yeah, like don't talk about being molested by your dad. Like I don't want to hear that. Like, gee, go talk to a therapist or something. Yeah, not good. Not good. But yeah, I think no, I like what you said. What happened happened, and if I could go back and change it, I would, but that's out of my control. And what is in my control is how I respond to it. And I guess for me, that's just been talking about it and being vulnerable and starting a podcast so other people have a safe space to talk about it. But no, I mean, I don't know where you want me to start, but well, it's funny going to that JT Fox event because I mean, Jess, but like there's some big time people there. Like there's these CEOs and there's these actors and I just remember he's like, so like what are you? I'm like, I'm a high school teacher. Like I was a high school basketball coach,
Yeah.
teacher. And very much just loved my life. Like I grew up with a dad that taught me that, money isn't really anything special. Like the number one thing in life is relationships and relationship with your wife and kids. And so I always just wanted to have a family. And so, yeah, I was a high school basketball coach. My wife, Courtney, we were high school sweethearts. So we got married. She became a nurse. So Courtney was a nurse. I was a psychology teacher slash basketball coach, and we just had this simple life. We had three kids, Riggins, Blue, and Frankie. Riggins was 5, Blue was almost 4, and Frankie was 2 when the car accident happened. So I was a high school basketball coach. I got offered this new job as a basketball trainer in Southern Utah, and it was like my dream job. So we accepted it, moved our family to Southern Utah. Probably a month or so after that, we had a family reunion, and I didn't go because I just took this new job, and our first basketball tournament was the same weekend, and I just felt like I couldn't miss it just taking this job. So my wife Courtney took our kids to the family reunion, and I called my brother Race, who also lived in Southern Utah with us, and just asked him like, are you going to the family reunion this year or what are your plans? And my brother Race was going, but his wife Keisha couldn't go. His daughter Faith couldn't go. His son Ran couldn't go, but his youngest son Ryder could. So my brother Race and my nephew Ryder get into my family's car and they go to the family reunion. And then July 25th, 2021, they were driving back and they're on the interstate in a small town called Fillmore, Utah, and a sandstorm kicked up and covered the highway, caused a 22 car pile up, and it killed 8 people. And 5 of those 8 people were my family. So my wife Courtney was killed, my son Riggins was killed, my daughter Frankie was killed, my brother Race was killed, and my nephew Ryder was killed. My son Blue survived. He was pulled out of the car. They life flighted him to the hospital. He had a deep cut on his head and a fractured hand. But other than that, he was okay. We spent one night in the hospital, I think, and then went home. And that was kind of the death and the birth of a lot of things in that moment. And that's kind of been the daily battle since that day. I mean, it happened 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. Feels like it happened yesterday. Feels like it happened 20 years ago. Yeah, it's been hard.
I mean, I've heard your story before, but yeah, it's impossible to hear that without feeling that heavy emotion. And I'm sure, well, first of all, thank you for sharing again. I know you share your story probably like all the time, and I am curious with sharing that story like over and over with people. Do you feel like it kind of has become like a script, like? Sometimes when I share my story, like I feel like okay, I got the main points here, 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 here. Are there times where there's different elements of it that come up that you haven't shared before?
Yeah, I think all the above. I just couldn't talk about it at all. I mean,
Mm.
the first year I was just drinking, drugs, sleeping pills. I just so much shock, denial, anger, pain, depression. I just all of it. I just didn't know what to do. I couldn't believe my life. I didn't want to accept my new life. I didn't know how to do my new life. Like, they were my identity. I don't even know what to do. And then just not the emotional part of it, but just like I went from a family of 5 to just me and Blue now. So the house we needed to live in and the light, like everything was just, I just couldn't recognize anything. And I remember getting a phone call and the guy's like, there's been a car accident. And so I hurried and texted my brother's wife who was worried because they haven't been home yet. And so I put him on speaker before I knew the details. And I'm like, hey, there's been a car accident. And my mind went to like, oh, like there's been a car accident. That's why they're not answering the phone. Like one of them's probably hurt in the hospital and they're in the hospital and that's, probably don't have a signal. That's where my brain went worst case scenario. Maybe one of them's hurt. Or maybe the adults are hurt and so the kids can't. And then as the phone call unfolds and he's like, there's one survivor. And so then I just fall to the ground. I don't know. I think what I'm trying to say is like, I didn't think anything like this was even really possible. Like worst case scenario, my brain went to maybe they're hurt. And so I think that one of the reasons I talk about it is I'm just so much shock and denial and anger still. And talking about it really helps with those things. If I can talk about it, it makes it very real, which makes acceptance easier. And then once I've accepted it, then I have more control over the pain. The pain doesn't go away with acceptance. I think that's actually when I feel the most pain. Is when I like, wow, they're dead. Like that's not good. That hurts. But when you accept it, then it's like, okay, what are we going to do with it? Like, what are we going to do about it? But running from acceptance just keeps you in the blame game and the misery and no gratitude and no reason to really keep doing anything. And gets really dark quick. But I don't know. I just think talking about it helps me carry the weight of it. And if I don't talk about it, it just builds up. Like it doesn't go away. It doesn't like just take care of itself. So yeah, as much as I do talk about it, I still think much of it's out of necessity. If I do get to a place where I don't feel like I need to talk about it as much, I just feel like I'm kind of doing it now. I don't think I would do it as much. Like this conversation with you, I don't know anything about you. Like I don't know, I don't. You might have a million followers, you might have one follower. Like this was the interaction with JT Fox. I had no clue who he was. If you give me an opportunity to talk, I'll talk because I need to talk, and I think it also helps other people too, and building connections with them. I think a big reason, especially men, why they don't talk about pain and or not pain, but they don't talk about needing help and being broken or being vulnerable, being sad, like admitting those things, is they do like the comparison thing. We compare our grief, which is just not how it works at all. And an analogy I like to use is if you get your arm cut off and you're bleeding to death, you need to go to the hospital, like you need help. But then if you look to your left and you're like, oh, this guy has both arms cut off. So I'm not gonna ask for help.
Wow.
Like you're gonna die. You need to go to the hospital. Like, and that's I don't know. Like that's just kind of how it is. But I don't know. For the 2 years that I've started talking about it, it's what's given me my life back.
Yeah, I can definitely relate there. Actually, remember being like 9 years old is when I told my mom some of the stuff that was happening to me, being molested and everything. And I think we were just getting back from a meeting with an attorney or something. I'd like gotten checked out of school to go talk to an attorney, and we went back home. And I asked her like, is it okay for me to tell people what happened? And thank God that she said yes, because if she had shut me down in that moment at such a young age, I don't know how that would have impacted me. But I'm so grateful that she said yes. And I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go like tell everybody like what's going on. But I wanted that like permission, and maybe I didn't know how to ask it from myself. But asking my mom in that moment, I just wanted to have that permission that if someone cared and was interested and wanted to know, you know, that I could be open and free and share that pain and frustration and anger with other people.
No, like that's everything because they're not gonna fix like it's unfixable. Like what happened to you is unfixable. It's not, oh, it's okay now, Jess. It's okay. Like, no, like what? It's never gonna be okay. And same thing with the incident, like with my family, like it's never gonna be okay. And it doesn't need to be fixed, but if I can just be heard and if I can just tell it and I don't feel crazy, I don't feel alone, I feel connected with someone,
Mm.
that is enough to keep going with the pain and find the good parts about the awful shit of the pain. But like until you feel like you're valid in how you feel, like that stuff's hard. Like the self-healing part of it is hard until you feel okay to like heal up. And I know that sounds weird, but I don't know if this is similar to you with what you've gone through, but part of you just feels like you don't deserve to get better. Like you just deserve to feel awful. Like that's just how it should feel. Like you don't deserve to be happy. So part of you doesn't want to get better. Part of you just wants to stay in misery because it feels like you're honoring them and what happened and how bad it is. And happiness kind of feels like betrayal. And that's hard to deal with. I don't really know the answer to that. It's just something I'm working on a daily basis.
Yeah, just learning how to recognize that feeling of worthiness again. Like I deserve to feel happy, and that can exist at the same time as honoring the that space of grief
Right.
for what you've been through.
But I mean, the reason I didn't just blow my head off was Blue. Like Blue survived, and so that's what kept me here. So Blue's my hero. But I was just kind of in this in between of I couldn't die because of Blue and I wanted to die to be with them. And so I was just in this weird like in between. But I was just not dying. And which is okay for the first couple months. And I felt proud of myself. Like I remember days like I didn't kill myself. Like, man, I had a great day. Like I crushed it today. And I remember family and friends were concerned about, how much alcohol I was, and they should be, like rightfully so. And I just remember them being so concerned, like, like you got to get out of bed, maybe go on a walk, maybe eat something today. And in my head, I'm like, man, like I crushed it today. I'm doing so good. Like I didn't kill myself. And there's just this big disconnect for a while. I don't like, I just felt so alone. Like I don't think you guys understanding what's in my brain. Like, I think I'm doing good. But then, like, I eventually realized I not dying wasn't enough. Like, I had to be in the moment. I had to be present in the moment for Blue because to be a good dad, and I just wasn't being a good dad the way I was handling the grief. And so that kind of motivated me to, like, okay, I have to. I mean, I always make fun of people for talking about pointless shit like traffic, weather, the sporting event, how much lipstick costs, gasoline. Like it drives me bananas. But like the funny, ironic thing about grief is I think you're trying to work through this to try to care about those things again. That's what it's about in a weird way, is like,
The simple things.
yeah, like feeling worthy and having the emotional energy again to be like, yeah, this lipstick does cost a lot of money. What is wrong with it? Like, I kind of miss that. Like, I think kind of the goal is to try to, yeah, live this life again. Try to give it another go. Try to give a shit again. And it's hard because a big part of you is like, I just want to be done. This hurts so bad.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we get comfortable in that space of chaos and unworthiness and stress and feeling like shit all the time. And so anything outside of that is like no, that's not who I am. That's not my reality. But taking that conscious choice and flipping our perspective. There's a really good quote: "Your perspective is your prison or your power." And I feel like you are doing such amazing work to show up in a way that your perspective is your power. And I know it's taken a while to get there, and I know you don't exist in that space all the time. I think you and I will be healing for the rest of our lives, and that's okay. It looks different, but in those times where we catch ourselves in that prison of pain and fear, anger, frustration, or whatever those experiences originally placed us in, then we can recognize that faster and faster and be like, okay, what do I need to help me get myself out of this prison? And how can I start seeing things in a different way that gives me my power back and allows me to show up on my terms?
Yeah, I think that's what Blue was for me. He gave me all those things. So yeah, I guess that's the power of being a dad or having like the we is greater than me or having a reason why. And then like I started to learn this 1090 principle that I'm trying to adopt. Yeah, I just learned that if I just lay in bed all day, then that's why they died. Like the
Mm,
the reason why is actually up to me. God's plan or it's not something I have to find one day. It's actually up to me.
yeah,
Like I'm in control of that. And I just realized if I'm just an alcoholic and just throw a pity party all day, then that's why my wife died. That's why my son died. That's why my daughter died. Is so I could be an alcoholic and a bad dad now. And so I kind of realized like, man, like that's not the story. That's not what Courtney would do. That's
mm,
not what my brother Reese would do. He'd never give up like that. I know Frankie and Riggins want me to be happy. So then, you start like this whole like, yeah, let's go. And then
yeah,
the next day, like I'm fucking done. Like I want to be dead. And then like that's grief. Like it's just up and down, left and right. And there's nothing linear or consistent about it at all. At least not for me. It's just a shit show.
yeah, dude. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm good. Like I love life. Life's great. And then something happens and I'm right back in that space of freaking being molested or whatever. And I'm like, okay, gotta reconnect myself, reground, remind myself like what the present looks like, feels like, and move forward again.
Yeah.
So I think our past is always there to pull us back, but if we allow it to pull us back for too long, then we're never gonna move forward.
Oh yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why grief comes in waves. So like you're just able to keep moving forward and breathe. Because if you were constantly in like that, I don't know how to explain it, but like that deep inner circle of grief, oh man, you would die. Like you would die. So I just think, yeah, it comes in waves. We talk about denial and shock and bargaining and numbing all these parts of us that aren't good, but like kind of are like sometimes you do need a break. Like you need to numb a little bit. You can't just feel this all the time. It's you'll die. So I think all the parts are necessary and they're trying to help you just survive this thing and make sense of it. Even your ego, like people say God gives his toughest battles to his strongest. Like that, like what are we saying? Like, just tell me it's awful and no one deserves it and you're sorry. And yeah, I'll try to do it. But it makes me mad when people try to make light of it. Like, oh, it's not that bad because you'll see him again, or it's not that bad because like that's where it's just an immediate disconnect for me.
Yeah. Like a little shift in what you said about like God gives his hardest battles to his strongest warriors or whatever. I heard a line, it was like yesterday actually, it was like God gives hard things to strong people. And I like that from the perspective that just the reminder that you are literally strong enough to get through what has been given to you. Sometimes we ask why. Why did I go through this? Why did this happen to me? But for me in my own journey, looking at it from the point of view of like, okay, maybe before I came here onto this earth, like I was perusing the library of like all these different people's stories or which one I could choose, which one I wanted. And, this one is what resonated with me. This is the one that I was like, this is my story, and I'm gonna come to this earth, I'm gonna own this shit, and it's gonna be freaking hard, but I am willing to do it. And so approaching life from that point of view has really helped me to have more peace and clarity. Not that it makes things easier, but just being like, maybe this is how things are because I was willing and I knew I was capable of getting through this in a way where I could look back and help other people who are experiencing similar things. Because like you mentioned, it's all about helping other people. If not, like what's the point of going through something shitty if you're just gonna keep it to yourself and like not help somebody who needs to hear what you have to say, you know?
Oh yeah, I'm a big Metallica fan, and
Yeah, I see that.
they have this album and a song called Justice for All. And I think justice, like a lot of people think justice is like, oh, like there's a murderer and he got away, like you gotta go catch him. And justice is served. And yeah, like that's part of it. But part of justice is just like what you were saying, Jess, is we all have a story and we all went through shit. And it is your duty. Like it is justice for you to share that. It's your job. Like it's your job to share that pain with other people. And if you're not, then that's not justice. Like it's wrong. And I like that. I think that's something that's how I see it too. And yeah, I've done a couple mushroom trips where that's very much the feeling is like I picked this and I knew how hard it was gonna be, but Frankie picked it and Riggins picked it and we all picked this and yeah, I've been in that headspace before and then I've also been in the absolute opposite headspace as well. And I'm also very much in, like sometimes I think I died. Like I died that day and I'm in hell now. I thought that for a while. I keep sometimes I think I'm in a dream.
Yeah.
Like maybe I'll wake up to like this was just a bad dream. And dreams like when you're in them they feel so real. So like maybe I'll just wake up and I'll just turn to Courtney and like I just had the worst dream. And that hasn't happened yet either. So we all try to make sense of this thing. Like it's terrifying. Why are we here? Why are people dying? Why does it hurt so bad? And we all want to make sense of it. And we cling to whatever idea we can to get us through the day.
I what you said about dying that day really stuck with me. I don't think I've really put it like that before. I want to ask you about that notion of self-loss, um, with going through all the grief that you've experienced and your journey with kind of losing yourself. What was your rebirth process like? What has helped you to reconnect with who you are, to rebuild your identity, and to move forward?
I mean, Blue for sure is the number one thing. And then Sammy fell in love again with this girl, Sammy, who's amazing. So I think relationships is the best thing about life. There's a quote I love. It's not the destination or the journey, it's the people. And I love that. And then what sucks is then those people die. So like, whoa, like, okay, now what is life about? Well, it's about the people again. You gotta get more people. And that's a big part of my grief, one of the hardest parts is not just wanting to die. I think wanting to die is just a natural reaction you have when you lose a kid. Like, it just comes natural. You feel worthless, you feel awful, so much shame and guilt. You just want to die. So I think that's the easy part of grief. Like that just comes normal. I don't have to try to do that. Like that's just the feeling. But like trying to be happy again, like that is painful. And trying to get relationships again, knowing they can just be wiped out again in a sandstorm. Like, even if they're great people, Courtney was so good. My kids were great. My brother Race was one of my heroes, right? Or never did anything wrong. Wiped out. So, like, actually doesn't matter if you're the best person or the worst person. You just have to be in the moment today because it's really all you got. And so, like, learning all those things has been helpful. But yeah, it's been Blue, it's been Sammy, and then the podcast has really helped me just not feel alone. I thought I had the worst story, if I'm being completely honest with you. Like I thought like no one has it harder than me. And on this podcast, I'm like, holy shit, like there's so many I am not alone, not even close. There's so many people out there with just as bad stories. Where I don't even know how you measure it, honestly, but there's just terrible stories one after another. But so finding that connection and just giving this, I feel like there's some purpose to the pain now instead of just this pain for no reason. So I think all those things have helped me keep going.
What has your relationship with faith and God looked like before and after?
And yeah,
Especially
yeah, were you raised LDS? Yeah. Are you still LDS?
not no, not so much.
Well, like I left the LDS church like maybe a year or so before the car accident. So I kind of had that and walking away from the religion you were raised in's no picnic either.
Existential crisis.
Yeah, and then after the car accident is when I kind of had the whole God thing. So I shifted away from Mormonism to just, I would just say traditional Christianity, just this belief in God and stuff. But yeah, after the car accident, that got obliterated. It just doesn't make any sense to me anymore. And I think religion and God and Jesus overcoming death is just under the umbrella of denial. Like you're literally denying death, won't believe in it. You believe this guy overcame death. So I think it's just in denial. But listen, I'm in denial too every day. It's not like I'm doing great over here. Like I have my version of denial too. So I'm not trying to make it like leaving has made my life better or anything. I'm just trying to be honest with how I view it. I think it hurts so bad that we talk ourselves into seeing him again and making everything okay with this word faith, which I just think is a word we've created to cover up God's bloody footprints, and he has no accountability. He can just do whatever because of faith. It'll all make sense one day. And I don't want to associate or be a part of any plan that my family dying in a sandstorm or you getting molested by your father is a part of. Not, no, won't say it's okay ever. So that's just yeah, that's kind of how I see that type of stuff.
Well, I want to say thank you for sharing your perspective. I know it can be hard when
Can I just say one more thing? I think the best way I'll explain it is when I had to bury my family, when I answered the phone, when I heard they were dead, the feeling is it's undescribable. It's truly awful. You want to die. You want to die. That's probably the best way I can explain it is. And it feels like you're gonna die. Like this pain is so bad. I'm not gonna be able to keep going. But no, somehow you're able to just keep waking up. I forgot where I was going with this, but something about God.
yeah,
It was gonna be good too, Jess. It was gonna be way good.
I can feel it. If it when it comes back, feel free to share.
Yeah, yeah.
It-
That feeling, it has never felt like, oh, I'll see him again. I'll see him in heaven again. That's not my body's reaction, my heart's reaction, my spirit's reaction, my mind's reaction. That was not the feeling ever once at all. It felt like death. They were gone. That's why I'm crying. That's why I'm shaking. That's why I have all these fucking problems now. And so like, yeah, it's just a huge disconnect for me is that idea of I'll see him again comes later when I'm trying to cope with the pain and I just want to try to sleep at night. And so yeah, you just talk yourself into we'll see him again and you stop leaning into the pain and you have this illusion that yeah, everything's fine. I'll see him again. And then deep down, at least me, like it's not the feeling.
yeah.
Feeling hell.
Thank you for sharing that. One of the biggest things that shifted when I left the LDS church, I guess, was my fundamental belief, like in my mind, body, and spirit, that God is personable. Like your relationship with God is between you and God. So whatever that looks like to you, whatever that feels like to you, nobody else can dictate that. And so, God for me is he's found in nature. I feel connected to this
We is greater than me thing. Like,
yeah,
yeah, it's not about me.
yeah, just like that bigger essence or a higher energy that without like getting too woo-woo, it's real, it's undescribable. And when we try to put words to something that's indescribable, it becomes like man-made almost. So it's like God is beautiful and infinite, and I don't know exactly how it all fits in with the shitty parts of life and everything like that, but for me at least, I still hold on to there's that bigger purpose, and I'm just a small fish in the sea, and whatever I can do to make that sea a beautiful space of light and love, like that's what I'm here to do.
No, I love that. Yeah, I just kind of replace God with humanity. Like when people talk about God, that's just how I see it too. Just how you explained it. Like God, it's me and you. It's
Yeah.
humanity in general. It's our connection. It's
Hmm.
that stupid metaphor everyone uses of the forest, how we're all connected by the roots type of thing. Like, yeah, I think that's very much a good representation of humanity. And that's why I love talking about grief and trauma. I think that's the strongest root that connects anything. Oh, that pain and that hell. Because
Hmm.
all the bullshit falls off. It just becomes about the purest form of the emotions of life, I think.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I've learned through my podcast is, man, connecting with these people through grief has allowed me to connect with people like in a way I haven't been able to do before. And that's another gift of the grief, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Once again, having that space to share your grief and whatever you're going through, it helps you and it helps the other people. When people can recognize almost like a part of their experience that they haven't been able to put words to yet, but you are. It's like that's just so healing to hear somebody's perspective or what they've done. Like, wow, that's what I've been feeling this whole time. That's what I've been trying to do. So that's why sharing your story, even if you don't have it all figured out yet, like just share where you're at. That's what you did when you showed up to JT's event. I was like, "Dude, this guy is still in a lot of pain and he's healing and he's growing, but he's owning it."
Went to Disneyland that day. I had fun that day. Like, yeah, I think that was a good day because I was able to talk about it. And then that made it easier because I felt like I gave attention to the grief. Like, I honored the grief. And then that made it easier for me to, like, okay, like, I can have fun and I can laugh. And they want me to laugh. Yeah, it all gets easier when I have a space like you were talking about to share it. And even our conversation today, like, we probably agree on most things, but didn't agree on everything, but that's not the point. The point is we can actually, yeah, have disagreements if we want, but feeling heard does so much, at least for me. Like just feeling like, yeah, it's okay for you to hurt that much. You're not weird, you're not weak. I think you're doing good, Mace. Like, yeah, I need that.
Yeah, and it's also okay for you to have your own perspectives and your own opinions and beliefs.
Yeah, exactly.
We all have our own experiences and life.
Well, here's the other thing. I don't fucking know anything.
Yeah,
And so
I
that,
don't
like
even
that's the other thing. Like, I thought I was gonna live a long life with Courtney and have grandkids. I thought the Mormon church was true. Like I can't trust myself. I don't know. I don't know anything. So like I think knowing that makes it easier for me to just hold space with people. And if I do disagree with something, just a reminder of like they have just as much of a chance of being correct as you do, Mason. Anyway, so yeah, just the humility of being humble by losing so much is like, yeah, I don't know what's coming today. And it's funny, like when I do public speaking and I start talking and people start writing shit down, I'm like, stop, like, don't write anything down. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know if I'll believe in what I'm saying in a week from now. Just be careful.
right. Yeah. I I think a big part of that is like your intuition. I know a lot of the times when I hear people speaking, something they said like triggered something within me, and I'm like, oh, I want to remember the impression that I just had. Sometimes it's I'm writing down their words, but sometimes I'm just writing down the experience or what it made me think about, and like what a beautiful gift that you are giving them to have that experience within themselves by sharing your story. So we're gonna wrap up here, but I um, wanted to ask a few last questions. One, if you could talk to your 10-year-old self right now, what's something you would say to them?
I mean, I'd say you're gonna meet this girl named Courtney Atkinson when you're 15, and you should fall in love with her and marry her and have kids with her. I think that's what I'd say.
What do you think they would say to you?
My kids,
Your 10-year-old self, what would they say to you right now?
probably I'm sorry. Like I'm so sorry. Give me a hug. It's weird that I actually talked to my 10-year-old self in therapy, or I used to a lot. So it's funny. I've actually talked to him a lot. I don't know if that sounds weird, but
But I think that's beautiful. We all have that child self in us for the rest of our life. And
I think that's what he'd say.
well, thank you for sharing that.
I like those questions. Those were good.
Thanks. Yeah, so moving forward, you've got the 1090 podcast. You do public speaking. What's the best way for someone to connect with you?
Yeah, I turned my public speaking into a nonprofit. So all money I raise through my public speaking, we give away at the end of the year to someone going through a traumatic experience. So I think that's cool. We have a website, 90.com, I think. We have a YouTube channel, we have Instagram, we have TikTok. So type in the number 10, spell out 90. I think if you care enough, you should be able to find us. Like it's not that hard. Just type it into the Google machine and we'll pop up, I think, somewhere.
What is a last piece of um, advice or wisdom that you want to share with the listeners today?
I just head into the pain. I would have the hard conversation, even though it's terrifying and it's going to make the pain worse at first. And you're going to question, why are we talking about it? My life's getting worse now. That might be the feeling at first, and maybe it is, but then it's going to get better, not in terms of the pain, but in terms of how you can manage your life with the pain. So yeah, I would just head into the storm and not run away from it. And there's no option in life that every plan is going to include pain. Like it's going to hurt. And if someone's offering you a lifestyle with no pain, they're lying. They want your money probably. Like they doesn't exist. But I think if you head into the pain, you also get the best amount of joy possible. So yeah, I think that would be my thing. And then I love my family with everything. I love Blue and I love Sammy. So yeah.
Thank you so much. I also lean into fear. I think fear is something that holds a lot of people back, especially when they've been hurt a lot. They're afraid of feeling that pain again. So yeah, leaning into all of the above, everything that you want in this moment is on the other side of what you're pushing back against. All right, Mason. Well, thank you so much. As you guys can tell just by listening to Mason and his story and the conversation, Mason is a powerful force for good and an amazing example of what it means to endure and persist even without having it all figured out. It's about showing up every single day, doing the best you can, having those relationships with other people, not giving up on them or yourself, and pushing through. So very honored to share this space with you, Mason. Thank you so much. And yeah, please reach out to him and connect with him and listen to his podcast and share those stories, hear those stories of other people, and just remember that you are not alone and you are stronger than you think.
Thanks, Jess. Appreciate it.